On the path to figuring out what to do in life, I'm starting to realize that the more time you spend planning how to figure things out, the less time you spend actually figuring them out. This week, I had been feeling a bit worried about the what ifs. I had thoughts like, what if I don't figure out what I want to do in 3 months? Or what if I don't actually end up becoming all that technical? After talking to some peers, I realized that a lot of this was just overthinking, and that sometimes it's easy to wish we had a roadmap or a secret formula to success. But on the pursuit of an unconventional path that doesn't really exist. There isn't really a structured way of figuring out what to do in life. You kind of just have to keep going and reflect on what drives or drains you. So, here's to another week of figuring things out. So this week has been a bit of an interesting week. For the past 2 weeks, I've been on this high of moving to San Francisco and then starting at the Build Space School, and now it's finally settling in that I have to put in the work towards actually achieving my goals. By the end of this week, I was hoping to ship a new feature for the project that I'm working on called Letters from a Stranger, which I talked about in last week's episode, but I ran into a lot of errors and issues, which I'll talk about in this video. I actually was debating not posting this video because I wanted to wait until the feature was done, but then I realized it's actually more valuable to share the mistakes that I made because too often we see things that look too perfect or, it always seems like things are going well, when in reality, there's a lot of points of frustration and just feeling stuck this week. For additional context, the feature that I wanted to build this week was one where each and every letter from a stranger had an AI-generated image associated with it. It would be in a similar style as the graphic on the landing page, so continuous line art, and it was actually a feature that some of you had requested either in person or on Twitter. So I guess let's just dive into some of the mistakes that I made. The first mistake, and this one is a bit more of a holistic view on things, but it was essentially trying to cram way too much in a day. Now that I'm graduated, I have full reign over my schedule, and figuring out what works best for me is a bit of a work in progress. At the start of the week, I was trying to incorporate 4 elements into my every week or even every day. Those 4 elements were plan, learn, build, and create. I wanted to spend some time doing each of those things every single day. What I found though was that I had this continuous to-do list that just was never really getting finished, and it just left me feeling a bit dejected at the end of the day. What I learned this week from Build Space School was to focus on one single thing per day. No matter how big or how small, if you have that one goal of the thing that you want to complete, as long as you get that done, everything else is bonus. And it actually feels really, really good when you get that one thing done. So basically, this is a board that we have, and you just put one thing that you're going to focus on per day, and whatever that one thing is, you have to ship it by the end of the day, and you can turn your sticky green afterwards. I did not finish my task yet, so it is not yet green, but we'll get there. So that's kind of the structure that I'm going to follow for the next little bit and see how that works. The next mistake I made, which is actually kind of a funny one because this is part of a lesson that I mentioned in last week's video, but I was rushing to build for the sake of building instead of actually taking learning opportunities as they came and went. So because I felt pressured to ship this feature by the end of the week and have it as something to talk about in the video, I started to compromise some learning opportunities by just copying and pasting the code that ChatGPT would give me, or just rushing through the docs because I felt like I needed to get this done. Instead, that just left me more confused and more frustrated because what I ended up having was just a bunch of spaghetti code where everything was starting to make less and less sense. And so taking the time to actually read the documentation, go back and find supplemental YouTube videos or things like that to help me along my way would have been a lot more helpful, and it's something that I'm going to do next week to actually get this feature done. Digging a bit deeper into that, the next mistake that I made was essentially not checking my API calls. So since I'm using Leap AI, you actually get 100 free credits to generate different AI generated images, and I had burned through like 70 of them on cat images by accident, and it's actually really funny to me now, but I was kind of sad at the time because I was like, what even happened? But yeah, essentially I generated 70 cat images because I didn't realize that I had hard-coded a prompt to generate an image of a cat. Check your API calls and check the dashboards of OpenAI, Leap, whatever you're using, just to make sure that one, the output is correct, and two, you're not wasting your credits. And finally, I think the last mistake that I had, this week at least, is just not asking for enough help. Being in SF, there have been so many builders, so many amazing builders around me, and I've just been too afraid to ask for help because I feel like, oh, maybe that's a dumb question, or maybe I should know this already, when sometimes you really just have to put that ego aside and just ask for help. I think that it's hard for me sometimes to do that, and it's something that I want to get better at. So really just being more vulnerable about the times where I'm confused and being open to receive that help. Next week though, I'm hoping to have that feature shipped, and hopefully I'll have even more learnings to share. This week didn't pan out exactly how I wanted it to, but that's okay. Oftentimes, we're our own harshest critic, and sometimes we focus too much on what we haven't done instead of what we have done. So, instead of striving for perfection, strive for consistency. As long as you keep showing up, that's what really matters. Thanks for watching.
Oh boy.